You live in a world where there is a lot of competition of ideas. And we are all for competition in the sense that it is contrast from which you can choose. But you are source and you are physical. And when in your physical focus, you are feeling good and therefore allowing full connection to the whole of you, so that all of you is having this thought, or all of you is in this communicative moment, or all of you is observing or remembering or anticipating. When you blend, when you allow that natural blending between you and the non-physical part of you, then life is sweet and full and understood and satisfying. And of course, sometimes you forget that. Sometimes what's happening is upsetting to you. And so in your reaction to the upsetting situation, you find a different vibration than your inner being who is never upset. And so in your logical humanness, you disallow or you hinder that full connection, and then you don't feel so good. And as humans, from our point of view, you spend way too much time in that situation where you're reacting to something when your inner being is not reacting the way you're reacting. In other words, when you react as if something's gone wrong instead of something's expanding, you depart from your inner being's knowing and from your inner being's true compassion. But when you take a brief step one moment where you know what you don't want, but you don't make it the end of the world, and you don't try to exaggerate it, and you don't try to emphasize it, and you don't try to defend yourself about it, and you don't rationalize it and justify it and make it bigger than it needs to be. Esther's mother used to call it making a mountain out of a molehill. And Esther never got that because there were no moles anywhere where she lived. She did not even know what a molehill was. She lived in the Rocky Mountains. She knew what mountains were, making a mountain out of a molehill. But after a while, in the context in which it was offered, she came to understand what her mother meant. Why make trouble when you don't need to make trouble? Why make a big thing about something that isn't a big thing? And that's what your inner being never does. Your inner being never emphasizes unwanted ever. And when you do, even though you think you have every reason in the world to do it, it's hard on you. And it's not necessary. Now, we didn't say that contrast is unnecessary. It is necessary to expansion. You really want to know what you don't want because it helps you to clarify what you do want. But if you could somehow, and perhaps in these hours that we are together, if you could leave your defensiveness out of your day-to-day equation, if you could stop feeling condemned or judged, if you could stop thinking that you're needing to prove something, if you could leave behind this thing you've picked up on your physical trail, which is something like, I need to be right, as if there is some competition or only one right, if you could set that aside for a little while, and instead of wanting to be right, want to be happy. And instead of wanting to be right, just knowing that you are as right as you can be, and that there is no one outside humans who is comparing you in that sort of way. So as we are together, it'll be nice as we talk about things that you are living, relatable things, practical things, things that are off-putting to you. It would be nice as we play together if you can come to a stronger decision that you're going to approach life from the standpoint of accepting your rightness rather than defending it as if it is challenged. Because it isn't challenged other than by others who are insecure. Only an insecure, meaning someone already disconnected from source energy, would challenge your rightness. And when they do, it's not really about you. So together, it'll be nice if we can get that all into context, because it will be nice if, as a result of this time that we spend together, when you leave this gathering, you no longer feel a knee-jerk reaction to defend yourself, because you found that secure place of alignment that doesn't ask for defending. It just embraces the full awesomeness of what you are. And then you can set out to do what you are really about, which is to be the uplifter that you were born to be. If you're insecure, you're not that uplifting. If you're insecure, you're usually looking around for others who are also insecure. But if you are in alignment, tuned in, tapped in, turned on, feeling the vividness and fullness of who you are, feeling your own flexibility, your own dexterity, your own quickness to thought and wit and knowing, when you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, then you've got this stream of well-being that is flowing to you. Then whatever you give your attention to benefits. When you are tuned into source energy, whatever you give your attention to benefits, and otherwise not so much. So there is nothing that is off limits. Your inner being has a lot of knowing, and has held knowing that maybe you haven't caught up with. But even more important than that, as you've lived life, you have asked for more than you currently are letting yourself acknowledge. And every time you ask for more, your inner being knows that too. Because you are a vibrational being. Esther's mother is on her mind today. She thought about her when she was waking up. And another thing that her mother used to say on a really regular basis is, listen to what I mean, not what I say. Because she would get her words tangled up, and her daughters would laugh at her, knowing that she didn't really mean to say that. And she would say, you know what I mean. Listen to what I mean, not to what I say. And her mother was wiser than Esther knew at the time, because that's what we mean also. The universe is listening to what you mean, not to what you say. So life causes you to ask for things that you may not be speaking out loud. Or life causes you to desire things that your beliefs may be in contradiction of. But your inner being knows what you mean and becomes what you mean, becomes what you vibrationally mean. And so that's what we mean by that, is that there is a vibrational reality that is known by your inner being and eventually will be known by you if you will care about being happy and follow the happy thoughts. Following happy thoughts will lead you to what your inner being already knows about what you want. That's what we meant by that. Your inner being understands where you are in relationship to where you'd like to be and knows what your path of least resistance is. We are eager to have this conversation with you. We want to add just a little prelude to that by introducing to this conversation the notion, the idea of the blending of where you have come from to where you are to where you are going. Because what you've introduced with human understandings is that when you're born into an environment, that environment already is acknowledging life from a certain lens. In other words, you're born into a set of beliefs. And when you're born into a set of beliefs, your observation of those people who are believing those things, because of law of attraction, because people get what they believe. So when they believe it, they attract it. And when they attract it, they demonstrate it. And when you observe this demonstration of their beliefs, those beliefs become your beliefs when they didn't have to. So that's why it's sort of slow going for so many humans. Slow going to go from what is to what you prefer. Because a belief is just a thought that you continue to think. But you're introducing here, what about beliefs that I'm continuing to think that I don't even know that I'm continuing to think? What about these unconscious beliefs? What about these things that I just picked up that I just accept as that's the way that it is? And what we would like to say right here at the beginning of this important conversation is that anything that never mind where you've come from, while it's all good and we're glad you came from it. Never mind where you came from, and never mind what they believed or what they handed off to you in terms of beliefs. Never mind that for just a moment. Instead, see yourself as standing where you are on your way to the even more that you've become, so that rather than considering these beliefs that brought you here, if your emphasis could be upon where you're going from here, these beliefs would have less holding you back effect from your evolution that you want. Does that make sense to you? It's a looking forward sort of thing that we'll talk a lot about while we are together. So when you're standing where you are and reaching for something more, that's when your emotions really kick in. And your emotions are the visceral, your feeling indicators of the vibrational variance in you, kind of resistance indicators. So if you have a belief, doesn't matter how long you've had it or if you just hatched it, because it's easy to come to flawed, erroneous conclusions all day long. You don't need your mother to do that. So as you come to a belief about something, something's active in you that you're thinking about, and your inner being knows that it isn't what you mean. It isn't what you mean. It isn't where you're going. It's not who you really are, and it doesn't serve you. Then your emotional indicator is going to be one of negative emotion. And if it is in harmony with who you really are and where you're going, it's going to be one of positive emotion. So if you're feeling emotion about it, it's not buried deep. It's not subconscious or unconscious. If you're feeling emotion about it, it matters. And we're going to add another powerful statement. Ready? Only if you're feeling emotion about it does it matter. Because if you're not feeling any emotion about it, it's not a big player in your vibrational mix. Which leads us to the next important thing. We're here to wake you up so you'll feel your emotions. Because you feel them and don't like them, so you pretend you don't feel them. And Esther's mother wants to say to you, we know what you mean. In other words, law of attraction is not missing what your vibrational mix is. So that sounds like, even if you don't know, it's part of your point of attraction. Well, of course it is. Everything's part of your attraction, but it's not a big player. That's what we want you to hear. It's not a big player. If you're feeling emotion around it, it really matters. If you're not, don't worry, it'll get bigger. And when it gets bigger, then it's a player, and then you can do something about it. And until then, we wouldn't spend too much time wondering what's going on. It's like the fruit trees are out there. They're all brimming with fruit, and some of it's ready to eat and some of it isn't. And you never say, I want to eat it all. You say, I want to eat what's ripe. I want to eat what's ready to eat. Even though it feels to you that all of these things are equally ripe, it isn't true. They're not all equally ripe. This is another human trait, that those previous beliefs are the reason for the trait, and they are not serving you. And that is that old notion that I'm here to prove worthiness, which is certainly not the case, because your inner being knows your value, your worthiness, your blessedness. But I need to do it myself. I need to struggle and sacrifice just a little bit, because you're still remembering the old version of the tree. There were beliefs that you picked up along your physical trail that don't apply now. They were never accurate. There was never a God who was asking for your sacrifice.